This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We are finally dry. A huge, heavy downpour hit us just when we were getting ready to check our cars and get ready for drive. But it's over. Just like that, the weather changes and I can see signs of blue sky. Whether the blue sky will officially come, I do not know. But I see the signs. Good morning. My name is Lauren and I have Owen on camera this afternoon. And we had fresh female leopard tracks walking right past camp. So she's either in our camp or she's on quarantine. So I think let's keep bumbling. Very, very fresh. And we know they're fresh because of the downpour. I wonder which female would be walking past our camp these days. Came from the west. Could be Shadulu, could be Kalamba. So I'm just going to keep bumbling and hope that we can maybe catch her mobile. That's the tricky part. We lose the tracks just before the dam cam. So she's either cut left into our camp or cut right into Yuri's house. Either way, she's around. So of course this safari is live and interactive. You can talk to us and please do send in your comments and questions using the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter, or of course if you're watching on the website, as long as you've registered you can submit your questions under the live safari page. And kids, if you're watching, you are the future after all. You are. So please send us questions. You send them in via email, and the email address is kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. Now I really hope we're not in store for more rain. Really. I don't like driving in the rain. But all in all, these conditions, as we always say, make it good for a mobile predator. Last night there was lots of drama at the hyena den. Sadly we didn't catch it all live, but unbelievable amounts of drama. I need to sit with the Juma clan and figure out what is really going on. Heart is acting incredibly dominant. Very, very strange behaviour. So naturally, if I really don't pick up on any signs of this leopard, because she could be sitting in our camp, that is not unheard of. Okay, there's an impala there. So she's not there. There's just one impala there. What was that, Owen? Yeah, why are you on your own? I mentioned yesterday, but we saw what looked like a newborn lamb, and I just wondered why this impala is on its own. Can you zoom in and see if it's a male or a female? Yeah, female. So hello. I don't advise that you be on your own, dear. Excuse the fence line. That is Yuri's house. Shadulu used to walk right in front of Yuri's gate. It actually happened when I was there one day, so she does use that sort of path, especially coming from the west. Okay, we are going to scratch around a little bit, see what we can come up with, but for now, let's take a look at the weather.
Good morning and welcome to Eco Training Pridelands. At the moment we're enjoying a beautiful sunrise after that we had some rain again last night. And the clouds and the backdrop is making the sunrise even more spectacular. We're also listening to a number of different bird calls in the background, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a moment. So my name is JP LaRue, and behind the camera we've got BK. So the calls that you actually might be hearing in the background is that of southern white-crowned shrike. They sound like squeaky toys. And then we've also got a number of small little quails, which we have scattered out through these grasses. And they are both a small button quail as well as harlequin quail. And the small button quail is the one that almost sounds like a little foghorn, while that of the harlequin quail sounds like something like wick, wick, wick. I'm just going to be quiet and allow you to also listen to the different sounds as well as to enjoy that beautiful sunrise. One of the other calls that you actually might be hearing is a lark that's calling, which is known as a rufous-napped lark, and the call sounds like something like this. And fairly easy to remember. If you want to remember bird calls, it simply says don't delay. Let's hear if it's going to call again. Good morning, Keenan, and it is absolutely gorgeous skies, and I'm so happy that we've got a beautiful sunrise. I'm also happy that the sun is rising that little bit now at the moment.
Sorry about that, everyone. You're back with us. I think she went into one of our camps. So what I'm going to do is just loop behind the camps. I've had Shadulu saw on my porch before. So I was inside looking out the glass windows and she's standing there sawing. It was incredible. But our rooms, where some of us live, actually look sort of right onto that drainage behind Gallagher Pan. So if we were to just walk out of our room, we immediately hit a drainage, and that's why we do get some exciting sightings in camp, because there's a drainage system. And then when you pop up from the other side, there's Gallagher Pan. So I'm doing a loop around, but she could easily be chilling outside my bedroom. That is not unheard of. Hosanna used to come into camp a lot, my goodness. I remember James was playing his guitar. James used to be my next door neighbour, and Hosanna just walked out from the drainage and just strolled past us all. Many Hosanna moments in camp. Okay, I'm just going to do a really careful scratch around, see if I can pick up on any sort of evidence of this leopard, and we're going to send you guys over to Tessa to say good morning.
Good morning, everybody. I am so excited to start our morning with some of the Talamati pride. And sitting very beautifully in the clearing is one of the sub-adult males. It's actually the darker one that we managed to see yesterday. And you can see quite a few vultures sticking around as well. So I'm very happy I came to check here this morning just to get a bit of an update. We haven't been here for long, but hopefully the longer we stay, the more we'll find out. My name's Tessa. I'm going to be your guide on safari. Behind the camera is Darby. And we're going to be spending a little bit of time here with the Talamati pride, just kind of getting a bigger picture, trying to count the individuals, trying to get the composition of the pride. You can see we've got our rain roofs on because we got a little bit wet this morning. But luckily it's cleared enough, and now we are experiencing a really stunning morning. Everything is looking nice and alive. So we've had a visual of one lioness as well. She's somewhere off to the left of the frame. We've got quite a limited gap where we are, but we are going to spend a bit of time repositioning as much as we can this morning, just to try and get a bigger picture of who is where and how many there are, and hopefully get a view of the big male. But at the moment, it seems like with the cool weather, with the rain, they're actually quite awake this morning. So we're actually managing to see some faces instead of just some sides and bellies. So I don't know how much is left of the carcass. We can't see it from where we are, and we couldn't even see it yesterday. They've dragged it into the dip of the drainage line. So we don't know how much is left, but they would have probably fed a little bit more during the night while it was nice and cool. There are a lot of hyena tracks out on the road. And so what I'm thinking, some of the vultures have started flying, so he's looked over and maybe they've been chased off the carcass. What I'm thinking is that the hyenas are still sticking around trying to find some scraps, which means if the lions are still here, there's vultures flying and hyena tracks, vulture tracks. Wow. It's still early in the morning, everybody. Then that must mean that there's still a little bit of meat left, and maybe the lions will still be here for the day. Quite an unusual shot, getting a lion and a vulture in the same line with their faces. Definitely a first for me. So you can see he's looking very alert. His ears are up, they're not flicking to get flies off, they are up, and he's listening and watching. So I think they've realized. Remember, this is the second carcass. The first one was a few days ago already. In the same area, we can actually still smell it every now and then. Now they've got a new carcass. There's vultures, which will be attracting activity, and there's hyenas. Lots and lots of hyena tracks. We haven't seen any hyenas, but there's lots of activity, and they know that that means other predators can see this from a distance. They can possibly smell it, and they can follow the activity to try and see what's happening. That was a very cool shot. And so what that means is these lions need to start being a little bit more alert. Because the smells are building up, because of the hub of activity that's going on at the moment, any other males could be seeing this from a distance. Big male lions could be coming towards this. Other prides of lions could be coming towards this, wondering why the smell and the activity is building up. And so that means you've got to be a little bit more alert than yesterday, as well as being cool, rainy weather. This is perfect for lions to move far distances. So depending on how much is left of the carcass, we don't know how long these lions are actually going to be here. But I wouldn't think it would be for much longer. Maybe still today, maybe tonight they'll actually start moving. But we're going to see if we can reposition a little bit. We just want to check a few different angles at the moment and see how many individuals we can actually see. And then we'll find the best view for you that we can.
We're just scratching around the area. It's slightly difficult. It's not a lot of ambient light and it's very wet. Just to see if we can see signs of this leopard. But with the tracks going into camp, it's very difficult to actually figure out which way she went. But we'll try, we'll look around. It's really miserable. The rain was very heavy, but it didn't last long. It cleared up quite quickly. The smell is incredible though. And once that sun bursts through, it will be amazing. Now this is one of my least favourite roads on Juma, but we're going to get through it because it is a good road for leopards. But to drive it, it is absolutely horrendous. Sometimes in the morning, if you stop for every pretty flower, you're wasting time to find a leopard. So you've got to keep moving. I think I'm going to start heading south. I've got different missions for today, and then we may come back and work the area for this leopard.
So it might be a little bit at the vulture's expense, but they do look quite waterlogged and a little bit unhappy this morning, and I don't think I blame them. The downpour we got was massive. It was very quick, it was very hard, and then it went away. But luckily we found a different position, and you can actually see a few more members of the pride. So far we've seen 3 lionesses, 1 subadult male, and if you look on the left, that is actually the big male that is lying with his back towards us at the moment. So it's the first time that I've actually seen him now with the pride. In the last few days we've been trying our best to get a view of him, but it seems like he's been evading us ever so slightly. And you can see a really massive belly, so he's eaten a lot more than the other lions, and this is expected. He's going to pull his dominance and he's going to feed first, and then the sub-adult males look like they've eaten the next most, and then some of the lionesses. From this distance, it's quite tough to say which lion it is. To me, it does look like dark mane, but we haven't seen him moving at all or seen the face. Jason, I'm so happy that you're pleased with how we started drive this morning. I am definitely very pleased as well. It's so nice, as much as it's a long distance view and it can be a little bit tricky for us on this side. Oh, hello boy. It's so good to see more members of the pride and to be able to spend some time with them. There you can see a little bit of his face. Yes, to me it does look like dark mane. I would say that it is dark mane. So there's an update for everybody if you were wondering about him. He is with the pride. He has definitely eaten. It looks like he's eaten half the buffalo calf on his own. And he's looking quite content. You can see a few of his bones, a little bit of the hips, a few of the ribs. But he is an old lion, so that's expected when they get older. Can you see that 2 of them are actually looking in the same direction? One is still grooming, but I thought I heard something in the distance that sounded like the sound of the lion roaring in the distance. Jack, the darker mane is actually more just genes, the difference between blonde and brunette for lions. So it doesn't necessarily mean stronger genes, it just means from a slightly different genetic background, basically. So the dark gene actually originated, they think, in the Kalahari, somewhere there. So it just means that he carries some of those genes. It doesn't mean that he's stronger than a blonde lion. It just means that he's darker, brunette as opposed to blonde. They used to believe that it was a sign of a stronger lion if you had a darker mane. And I guess in some ways, most of the dark lions that I've seen are much bigger in body, and the mane tends to be bigger and darker, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are stronger. So So you can't really use it as a rule of thumb to say his cubs are going to be stronger than Blondie's cubs, for example, because of the color of the mane. Usually you will find, especially in this area, the lions with darker manes are slightly bigger, but it could also just be because they're older. So they'll have a bigger body naturally, where a young lion will start with a lighter mane and it gets darker as it goes from exposure to the sun, from the testosterone, from more energy being pushed towards the mane. Over time it will darken. But I'm so happy that we've got a decent gap and we can actually see them. I think the carcass is probably almost finished, and that's why everybody's relaxed and happy enough to be sitting close to the water's edge instead of right next to the carcass. But I'm sure at least one or two of the Pride members are fairly close. They would be sitting a little bit closer to the carcass because we did see those vultures flying off just now, and that could have been from one of the lions moving back towards the carcass. Or maybe even a sneaky hyena coming in from the other side. Although then I think we would have gotten quite a reaction from the Pride if there was a hyena right there. But they are looking in excellent condition. I can honestly tell you that they've eaten more than enough, and they're all looking in good condition. Darkmane is looking a little bit older than the last time I saw him. But it's the normal life of a lion as you get older. Okay, so far we've seen 5 of the members of the Pride, 5 different individuals this morning alone. So that's already more than we've seen in the last few days playing our patience game. But what we're trying to do when we say we're wanting to see the composition of the Pride or the makeup, what we're trying to do is get an update on each individual, see what the dynamics are in the Pride at the moment, how many males, how many females, how many sub-adults, which animals are here. Because remember, historically in the last while, the Talamati Pride has actually been splitting. And then every now and then you'll see them back together. And it's kind of all been a bit of the drama since the Mbali male's been coming in trying to push Darkmane out. And the Pride has been splitting. And so it's nice for us to get an update on who is where, because it helps us understand the Pride dynamics, but also see what the lion movements are in the area. But I'm sure that's why Darkmane is sitting with his head up as well, because he's making sure there aren't any big males coming in. But while we sit here and enjoy the lions for a little bit, see if we can get a better view of them again, let's head over to Lauren and see what she's up to.
I am so happy to hear that it's Darkmane. I thought it was Darkmane, but it was a really long distance visual. I didn't even have time to pick up my binos. And I'm overjoyed. All of you have been asking for updates on him. And many people said, oh, he's losing condition. He's not doing so good up at Pungwe. He maybe wasn't doing so good, but remember, animals go through sort of peaks and troughs as well, just like us. And I had COVID at the start of December, and it was not fun, and it really, really impacted me on so many levels. And I'm still feeling these sort of after effects from that. And although that doesn't directly relate to animals, animals can get sick. They can also maybe eat something that just really doesn't agree with them. They can just go through periods of being what I would say weak. I remember during my training with Jamie Patterson, she said you should really be careful of saying the words losing condition, because if an animal really does lose condition, and she was referring to the time of Tingana, when Tingana remember he got a bit weak and everyone was worried about him, and then Hukumuri started to push in to take over his territory, and Tingana just wasn't doing so good. But of course he bounced back and he pushed back and he got his territory back. But that's what she was using as an example, that when you say an animal really is losing condition, then they're on their way out. Animals don't just lose condition. When they lose condition, it will be the end. But I think Darkmane has just been a bit weak for whatever reason. And I am so happy to hear that it's him, because we weren't sure. Oh, Darkmane. He's provided hours and hours of entertainment, Darkmane. I would really like to see him though. hope he comes on to Juma, or we can maybe go and see him this afternoon. I just want to just get to the hyena den. I'm not sure what's happening. I'll summarize a little bit later what I saw last night while we were not live, but for now we are going to keep bumbling in that direction and hope that it's active. We are bumbling towards the hyena den, but maybe if I just drive slowly enough, one can give you some views on what it's like, what it looks like as we bumble south on one of my favourite roads. We do have our rain roof on. But you can just feel what it's like to bumble along with us. It's a bumpy road, so it will be bumpy, but let's just enjoy.
So we've done a little bit of fancy footwork over here, and we've come up to the other side, the eastern side of the dam. And it looks like from here we can see quite a few white bellies in the air. So we have got a view of a few more lines. It seems like in this position we're high enough today and the lines are close enough to the dam that we can actually see a few more. It's still a little bit of a tough view because they are in the long grass, but you can see one lioness on the right in front of the log. She's facing towards the carcass, and then the rest of them seem to be flat, so it's just a whole bunch, a puddle of lion bellies that are way too full. And I think they're going to be sleeping off their food for the next few hours at least in this weather. We've been trying to count them. I don't know if you want to try and count them as well. It's quite difficult with the puddle the way it is, but we're trying to see how many we can actually see. I can see dark mane, he's the one right at the back, because you can see the slightly darker color. From what I can count, I think I'm counting 7. Susan, actually, yes, lions can overeat. Just like us, if you overeat, you might feel a bit nauseous. So I have actually seen lions that have eaten and then had to bring some food back up. but it doesn't happen that often. Normally they know their limit, and because they're so big and strong, they can defend a carcass. So they'll just eat slowly over a few days until a carcass is finished, as opposed to eating everything in one go. So they've got an advantage over something like a cheetah or a wild dog, which would eat incredibly quickly to try and get in as much as possible before something like a lion or a hyena steals the carcass. Lions, because they're usually in a pride, because they're so big and strong, they can eat slowly over time. But I have seen lions that have eaten a lot and had to bring some food back up. And it might be because they're nauseous, it might be because the food's not quite sitting right and it's giving them an uncomfortable feeling. But I wouldn't say that it happens very often. From their bellies it looks like they have, but this is fairly normal for lions when they've got 2 buffalo carcasses in 3 days. They're going to look like they've eaten a few balloons while they were still inflated. But you can imagine how hot and how tired they must be feeling. It uses so much energy to digest red meat. The body really, it doesn't struggle with it, but it takes a lot of energy. So the best way for a lion to cope with that is to drink a lot of water, which is perfect here. They're next to the dam. And the next best bet is to sleep it off so that the body can redirect all of that energy to digestion. But those bellies really do look hyperextended, especially dark manes. His is the big one you can see at the back. And it looks as though he's eaten way too many balloons. Even the belly on the right, I don't know if that's a male or a female, we can't see. I think it's one of the lionesses. Quite a large belly. I'm sure you can agree it's a nice and peaceful spot to have a morning nap. And I don't think the lions are going to be doing much other than getting up to go to the bathroom every now and then, drinking water, and then going back to sleep the whole day. This is where lions excel in life, is sleeping for vast majority of the day. I'm going to sit here for a while longer and see if we get any more activity and hopefully get a better head count of who's here. But let's head over to Lauren, who's at one of her favorite places.
The hyena den is active. It's all very calm. Nothing like last night. And I can see 2 heads. Oh no, I can see 3. So Ribbon's cubs are still absolutely fine. Heart's cub is getting a lot more confident. I think it's female. But we could do with more genitalia checks if that option presents itself. So Ribbon's feeding them. She's coming. She's clearly changed her schedule. Heart appears to be the most dominant one at the den right now, and it's just interesting because look at that cub. Do you like that stick? Oh, cute. Mommy, I love you. When we were traveling north on Twin Dams Road, we had Swazi and Ndebele and Navella run past a car. Run. And they were naturally heading in the direction of the den. So we thought we would pop in. And lo and behold, madness just took place. And Heart got very aggressive with Ndebele. I don't know why. Then she started acting very strange within herself. I mean, Heart's a big hyena. She is high ranked. But her tail was up the entire time. And then she started doing something very strange with Swazi. Naturally, she's a mother. She's got a cub, so she's not an estrus. But she started pushing her. It almost looked like lordosis, what the cats do. She was just putting her rear end into Swazi's face. Now, he didn't do anything. But she kept continually doing it, and her tail was up the whole time. So it appears that Heart, Swazi, and Ndebele have become a sort of a unit. Now remember, Pretty was high ranked right under Corky, and Pretty's grandmother, Madam, was assumed to be matriarch. So Swazi and Ndebele come from high ranked blood. They're in a good position. Heart's in a good position. But why was Heart acting so dominant last night? Why was her tail up like that? Novella's been hanging around them. Where's June? Where is Corky? And where is Ribbon? Why are we not seeing other mothers at this stain? Normally at a communal stain you do see lots of mothers, and they all come and take their cub and all the milk bars open. Why are we just seeing Heart? Look at that cub. All the cubs are really getting to know each other, that's for sure. And Heart's gentle with them. She's not aggressive towards Ribbon's cub, but why is Ribbon not coming here? I mean, I guess Heart, she was really showing her dominance over Ndebele. 100%. Ndebele's an adult now, so I guess that shows you where she sits. I was just, maybe there was another hyena around. Unfortunately, it was dark. I didn't have working headlights, and it's very difficult to judge what's happening in a busy sighting when you're plunged into darkness. So maybe another hyena approached, and Ndebele and Heart both went after that one, and I'm mistaken. Anyway, the vocalizations were incredible. Heart had blood all around her neck. Maybe the clan hasn't settled as I originally first thought. Maybe it's still in turmoil. From my past experience and with the previous matriarchal takeover, I would have assumed that even if Corky was thinning, even if she has given birth or she's heavily pregnant and she's preparing for that, you would still see her at some point here. I mean, I check regularly, and I'm checking so that I can give you updates. Many of you send me messages, where's Corky? I don't know. I don't know, but if I just keep coming to the den, then I'm hoping that I figure that mystery out at some point. I'm just not sure the Juma clan saga's over yet. I really don't. The way Heart was behaving, I've never seen her like that before. Did you get that name on? Okay, we're gonna guess Kitty. And you're saying, yay, cubbies! I know all three of them. This one at the front is just full of beans. Smelling all the other hyenas. Oh. They all anal paste a lot along the sort of stumps here. They've been exposed to other clan members. It's all very exciting at the hyena. Ooh, something smells really good in there. They're learning. Or learning sense. And loving sticks. There was all sorts of growling last night. And then the high pitched. You know the noise that I'm speaking about. You know who has the answers? It's that hyena right there. So we're just going to sit for a little bit longer and see if anything else happens.
So it seems like a few of the lions are sitting with their heads up at the moment. And from the count with them sitting up, I can count 7. So I don't know where the rest of the members of the pride are. We haven't seen any others, but maybe they're still just slightly further up the drainage line or up the bank to the right.
Tsunami fire is active.
We're very zoomed in, so we're trying not to move. So the one with its head up in the middle is the darker subadult male that we saw earlier. Further to the right, I can see a darker streak down the back, so that could be another subadult. And the one on the left looks like the lighter subadult male. But from this distance, it is very tough to tell, so I might be wrong. But it's just the darker one right in the middle that seems to have caught the whiff of something and is much more alert than the others. He's focused on things, he's turning his head and listening. And that makes a lot of sense. A subadult male is going to be very scared of new males coming in. Or nervous, I should say. He'll also naturally be a little bit more protective too, especially of the carcass. So it makes sense if it's the subadult males that are sitting up. He's definitely the biggest of the 3 subadult males, and the darkest. So in my mind, he's going to look a lot more like dark mane than the other 2. The other 2 might be slightly blonder. You can see the grass is blowing quite a bit, so there is a decent breeze at the moment. And so I'm sure that the lions are enjoying the fact that the breeze can cool them down a bit today, and that's why they don't mind moving around a bit and getting up.
Welcome back to Eco Training Pridelands. At the moment we are actually looking at a number of female weavers, and if we compare them to the males, they're much duller in coloration, and that's the case in most females bird species. And the reason is simple, that you have to be more cryptic in color to hide yourself from potential predators, while males have to stand out to actually attract the attention of a female. And if you don't attract the attention of a female, and you don't stand out, and you don't testify that you've been around and have placed yourself at some form of a risk and survived several years into maturity, they're not going to show any form of interest in you. We also do find that the majority of all these birds that do go into a breeding plumage, the male will automatically lose those colors at the end of the breeding season, and also quite often obtain the same dull coloration as what the females has to protect himself against potential threats. We're just going to pan in maybe on the nest over here. We can see that there's actually a number of different weaver species that are nesting underneath this red-billed buffalo weaver nest. And they specifically placed it on the north and western side of the nest, where it's more sheltered against the rain, which is a pretty smart move. We normally see that some of the weaver species will also strip the leaves off branches. It's hanging directly over a water body, and then start building their nests on there. For those of you that have joined us for the first time, these nests have been produced by the males, and they've also been used as a courtship display platform where they would attract the attention of a female. Once the female is attracted to the nest and she is interested in the male, she will inspect the nest. If the nest is of a suitable quality, that female will then mate with the male. If it's not, she moves on. She goes and looks for another guy. What we also will find eventually is that the males will break down these nests if they're not successful after several attempts of attracting a female, and then simply restart building it. We can see some of the females returning now with food to the nest, as there's most likely a whole bunch of hungry-mouthed little chicks inside those nests. So earlier I just mentioned that the males do move on, and it's entirely the responsibility of the females to raise those chicks. Good morning, Celia, and welcome to the show. And with regards to your question, how do they manage to hang to the branch? They're actually woven nest, and they actually weave them in such a way that they create a strong anchor at the base of a branch or a structure so that the nest doesn't fall off. If the nest is going to fall off and it's flimsy, once again the female is not going to be interested in it, and she's not going to mate with that male. because you don't want to invest all that energy in producing an egg and attempting to raise chicks for a nest that is going to be a flop. Also with a red-billed buffalo weaver nest, which is the larger nest that we see over there. It consists out of sticks. In this case, it's not a woven nest. It's with a smaller weaver species, but they interestingly will make these nests out of thorn branches, which they will stick into one another until that they don't come loose. And we also find that those nest structures are often placed on the north and northwestern side of trees. But generally over a water body, these are placed at random, and it's once again to do with the direction of where rain will come from. We also see a very similar thing with a close relative of a red-billed buffalo weaver, and that's a white-browed sparrow weaver. However, in the western part of South Africa, they actually put the nest on the south and western side, as the rain comes out of a totally different direction in that part of the country. With many bird species, nests is only temporary structures. It's only used for raising chicks. However, with some of the bird species, we'll actually use them on a regular basis. And especially in the winter months when it's cold, they will actually use them for hiding. And so it's normally some of the smaller finches that will do that. Well, we spent some more time at our dam. Let's go and see what Lauren is up to.
All sorts of lovely interactions. I actually think I should reverse, but this stick gets in our way all the time. But I just think we're missing just that sort of left section where lots of nice interactions are happening. How's that, Owen? Look, they're all, Heart's been kissing them all. She's not in any way aggressive to Ribbon's cubs and sort of really nice to her own. But she's been playing with them all. She's a mother. I also haven't seen Gingarika. Where are you, Kinky? Heart is a big girl. Look, that belly is still full of buffalo. Last night she could barely move. At least she's moving now. Didn't catch that name. Sounded like Deb, I think. I don't know. I have no idea. I would imagine at nighttime. I would think that hyenas are nocturnal, so they're very active at nighttime. And Heart seems to be doing the morning shift, sleeping in the afternoon and then coming just before sunset. So I imagine Ribbon's coming at night. I don't really know why she's avoiding Heart so much. I know there's been altercations and turmoil and upset and aggression, but I don't know why we're not seeing Ribbon. I don't think anything's happened to her. I don't know why we're not seeing her. Owen and I were actually just chatting about if only we could have a camera here. If only. And we could just literally watch the interactions and just, you would be able to gain so much information from that, what happens at nighttime. But then I would never sleep, so that would be a little bit problematic, but if only. They don't allosuckle, as you know, but Heart's very tolerant of these other cubs. She's just engaging with them. Heart, don't you dare leave. Oh, incoming. Who are you? Wet, soggy hyena. This is going to be interesting. I don't quite know who this is yet. Corks? Is that you? Is this Corky? Well, hello. I need that ID confirmed, everyone. Look at Heart's tail. Corks, is that you? Wow, that's the interaction we've all been waiting for. Corks, where are you going? Heart, now you're not the boss around here. Mmm. That's interesting in the direction Corky came from. I'm computing in my head if there are any other nearby termite mounds. Wow, that was absolutely amazing, everybody. I may loop around, see if I can catch where Corks is going. Ah, what a great morning.
How exciting to have Corky join this sighting. Oh my goodness. I think Corky is one of the only hyenas I have not met yet, interestingly enough. We've changed our position a little bit again here with the Talamati Pride. We've come a little bit further down towards the drainage line. And we've got a little bit of a better view of some of the lines and a worse view of others, but we've got a really nice view of these sub-adults that have been picking their heads up and then putting them back down again. We can still only count 7 in this little puddle, the little group of lions. But I don't think this is all of them. I think a few of them might be off into the longer grass where we can't see them. The breeze is actually dying down, which is not an advantage for the lions. I'm sure the lions would appreciate the breeze more than anything on the overcast day because it keeps them cool. But at the moment it seems like it's dying down a little bit and the weather seems to be clearing. So as the day gets hotter, these lions are not going to be lying down like that anymore. They're actually going to be moving towards the thickets on the sides where there's a little bit more shade. For now, though, we really haven't seen much activity. Nobody's gone to drink water or anything like that. It's just the occasional popping up of a head to listen or smell, have a look around, and then they go back to sleep. Just like that, flops back down. Nancy, actually, no, we haven't seen Silver Eye. I'm not sure if she is here, because we can't see the other lines. We have no clue which lines are actually here and which aren't. But I believe she was seen the last time the Talamati Pride was spotted. So before these 2 buffalo kills, I believe she was back with the Pride. When I left last time, she was with the Pride, and I'd seen her feeding at the carcass. But I'm not sure when the last time she was seen was. She's doing quite well, though, I believe. She's very resilient, after being attacked by those hyenas and still managing to keep up with the Pride, get some food. It's very impressive. But she is one of the lionesses that we actively look for every time we are with the Talamati Pride. And unfortunately, we haven't seen her in this group, but she might just be off to the right in the longer grass where it's a bit softer. She is an old girl, so she would need slightly softer grass than the others, a softer resting place. You can hear quite a few birds calling, and not many other sounds. So I think the lions are mostly going to have quite a relaxed, undisturbed day. That being said, I think there will be some elephants that come past again today. We had the elephants yesterday. They didn't bother the lions. They went and drank at the dam and they crossed the road and left the area. They were looking a bit nervous, but they didn't actively go and bother the lions. But if an elephant comes from the thickets on the right, then they might try and chase the lions a bit. But I think the lions are going to have a relatively undisturbed day. So what I might actually do, I think I might actually leave them for now, see if we can find anything else, just get an update on the rest of the reserve, and then we can always come back later and just see what the lions are doing.
Back to Eco Training Pridelands. We're still walking around the dam and looking for a number of different field signs and tracks, as well as a number of interesting little things so far. So far this morning, birding has been pretty good. So what we're going to do for the moment is just do a little silent segment and allow you to listen to all the different sounds of nature. And BK is going to share some of the images of the area by simply panning around with the camera.
Corky all the way to Baboon Pan. I won't get any further than this though. So for those of you that don't know, she's now in Little Gowrie. So she's either going to a den site on Little Gowrie or she came from one and she's now just mobile and doing what hyenas do. Which one? I don't know. Well, that's one mystery in a sense we can tick off the box. Kind of. Corky, why did you have to go into the Little Gowrie? So she either is standing here or I don't know. Maybe she's not even dead and I didn't get a good look at her mammary glands actually. If any of you are able to rewind or go back and check and screenshot, please help. I was just obviously really excited to see her. I thought she would hang around a little bit longer, to be honest. Anyway, I think we're just going to look back to the den now that Corky has disappeared, and we're going to send you guys back over to Tessa.
Hi.
Oh, good luck at the den, Lauren. I hope the cubs come out. I still need to go and see them this cycle. Oh, goodness. So we've left the lions for now. They are very, very sleepy, very relaxed, and I think they might start moving a little bit later. If it heats up, they're going to have to try and find some water and some shade. So they'll be moving a little bit more. So what we wanted to do is just have a little bumble, see if there's anything else in the area, any fresh tracks or signs of anything, and then we can go back and have a look later on just to see if there's been any changes. Just before we left, we noticed one more lioness lying off to the right in the grass. She looked like a sub-adult, a little bit younger. She popped her head up and then went back to sleep. So the total head count for the morning so far is 8, including dark mane and the sub-adult males. So the rest of the pride, I'm not sure if they're there, if they've split. But hopefully, if they do stick around for the rest of the day and into tonight, then we can try and get another head count a bit later. But it is very, very nice to see them. Oh my word, they have babies! It's very nice to see them relaxing. But we've just noticed some crested francolins in the road, trying to hide from the drizzle a little bit. And the grass is really wet. And they've got a little family, 3 young chicks. And so I'm sure they're just trying to stay out of the wet grass for a little bit and dry their feathers off. That is so sweet. Everybody's having a bit of a stretch. Scratching, preening, trying to realign the feathers. They are looking a little bit like drowned birds at the moment. Their feathers are very sticky looking from the rain and the water on the grass. If you actually look at that grass blade in front of that one's chest, you can see there's water droplets still on there. So you can imagine for a ground bird, oh, it's trying to go underneath, get some shelter. For a ground bird, walking through grass like this is just, you're constantly going to be getting wet. You won't have a chance to get dry. That's a little bit dangerous for them, especially if they've got chicks, because they need to be able to fly easily. And so if everybody's a little bit wet and bedraggled, they might struggle. Now it looks like they are on a feeding mission. Everybody's kind of spreading out and foraging. I'm sure they're going to be spending as much of their day as possible on the road. And I feel quite bad now that we're driving that way. Oh, cute. Look how puffed their chests are. They're trying to keep themselves warm by fluffing out the feathers a bit. Dry out the feathers, but also try and trap some air against the skin that can warm up. Look at the beautiful markings. You can see it really nicely on that chick. mottled feathers down the back with that very light white streaking. Like Keisha, I agree. It's so cute actually to see the little family together, going from a family of lions to a family of crested francolins. It's quite sweet. Oh, this one is not moving. Not very impressed that the rest of the family is moving around feeding. It just wants to sit still and get warm. Wait for me, everybody. Running off. So they'll be looking for anything on the road that they can find, little seeds and things like that they can find on the road to eat. I love how they climb underneath the adults. They're trying to get a little bit of shelter. It's not actively drizzling at the moment, but you can imagine mom's body is nice and warm, so to be able to quickly just climb underneath one of the adults will keep you warm. Oh, did you see that one yawn? The chick on the back left had a massive yawn there. They're still waking up. So these are actually ground nesting birds, so it's not as though these chicks came from a nest up in a tree. They have what we call a scrape nest. So somewhere underneath a nice sheltered little bush, preferably in sandy soil, these parents would have scraped a nest, basically just scraping a little hollow in the soil, and that's where they lay their eggs. So these birds have spent most of their lives already on the ground. The only exception would be maybe if mom and dad jump up onto a log or something like that to get a better view, the youngsters will try and follow. Is that chick grooming the mom, Dari? It's trying to get some shelter, but it almost looked like it was ruffling through mom's feathers with its beak. That is actually quite a sweet family portrait. It's actually preening itself. It's just that mom's feathers are moving at the same time. A little bit of trust and warmth from mom there. Oh, here comes another one. Junie, they really are very small and very fluffy. They're actually not the smallest crested francolin chicks that I've seen, but they are still kind of at that age where they can fit really nicely underneath the parents, so it's quite cute to see. Oh, third one trying to get in there. Oh my word, this poor adult is just being used as a giant umbrella at this point. Fighting for positions underneath her body. And now it's time for everyone to be preening. I don't know if you noticed just now, as the little one was almost just poking its head out underneath the chest, the adult actually started pecking on its head, starting to like groom it and preen it a little bit. But now it seems everybody's got their own feathers sorted. They're starting to preen themselves and mom doesn't have to worry about it too much. Almost looks like the adult wants to fall asleep. I'm sure that the chicks do, so they would get quite tired. Remember, you know, it seems like an easy life being a ground bird. It's actually not, especially now that it's so green and so thick. To walk through this grass, if you're a tiny little chick, must be like navigating the most complex and dense rainforest for them, if you think about it. If you try and compare it to us, you know, they're walking through incredibly thick grass where there's a potential threat around every blade. And so it must be quite exhausting. So when they do find an open patch like this, they'll really take advantage of it as much as they can. Take the chance to rest safely where they can actually see further. Okay, but I'm going to leave this little family to enjoy their cuddle. I'm going to try and get around them without disturbing them, and we'll head over to JP and see what he's got on his walk.
Welcome back to Eco Training Pridelands. At the moment we are looking at netwing beetles, and these beetles are quite easy to identify with their bright orange coloration combined with a black. This is all warning colors that will indicate to birds as well as other predators that they're toxic and therefore they're best to be left alone. When it comes to these little beetles, they're actually mating at the moment, and when it comes to reproduction in insects, they have to provide an egg. With many of the insect species, we also find that they will a year later roughly hatch once there is rain again. We also see that some eggs will only develop maybe 2 or 3 years later once that there's only a sufficient amount of rain or conditions are perfect. And that's a strategy that they've evolved so that the population can survive, as insects often die off when the winter comes. And we find that there's roughly only 1% of the insect population around during the winter months compared to the summer months when conditions are ideal. There's a few things I do find interesting when it does come to the reproduction within insects. We find that there's 3 broad groups of how they reproduce. Firstly, there's those more primitive insects which will simply lay an egg, which then develops into a miniature version of an adult, and eventually that will dice or grow into adult or shed its skin several times into becoming an adult. Those are generally things like silverfish as well as fish moths. The more advanced insects we find, for example, with bugs, that they will have an egg and then a nymph, and the nymph will eventually develop into adult. But in the case of beetles, they've got a complete life cycle, which includes egg, and then from there a larvae, pupa, and eventually it will develop into an adult. So some of the viewers also quite often ask me what is the difference between a bug and a beetle, as in all insects and bugs. Bugs for us are specifically referring to a order of insects which includes insects that has stabbing mouth parts, which has got an incomplete life cycle. And the reason why they've got stabbing mouth parts is either to suck fluids out of plants or from a live host. And if you compare them to beetles, we find that beetles actually have chewing mouth parts. And once again, these can be based for using on plants or on live insect or animal prey that they might feed on.
I've left my little Franklin family. I'm now bumbling along. I want to go down Impala Road and check towards Impala Plains in case anything has come in from Triple M, the western side, before we head back to the lines a bit later. So far with tracking, just a few hyena tracks and some elephant tracks. Nothing substantial like wild dog tracks. I would love that this morning. Aiming high, aiming high. So this is probably one of my favorite roads actually in terms of the vegetation, because it starts off at Sandy Patch, which is nice and open, then it goes down a little bit more towards these quarry thickets, which you can see. But as we go, we actually get towards seep line and then back towards drainage line. So it goes through a few different habitat changes. And you can see the big clearings, which we're in at the moment. We're in a bit of a clearing, and then all of a sudden you start seeing a lot more brush, like now. And it starts getting thicker again. It starts encroaching on the clearings. So this road, you can find almost anything on. Hyenas, wild dogs, lions, leopards, elephants, kudus, impalas. I've had pretty much every sighting you can think of here, and really good bird and insect life as well. It's a very diverse road in terms of the sightings you can get. So it's always a good one to check. Also, because of the clearings, because of the little pan systems, it is a road that animals tend to come towards from Triple M, from the western boundary. And now all of a sudden we're in the section where we've got a lot more bush willows than guarries, and a lot of African wattle. It used to be the weeping wattle. And so now we start seeing especially a lot more insects. All of my favorite things you can find on this road if you look hard enough. Absolutely brilliant. Even birds of prey we get to see here a lot. Very productive road, a good one to take every morning.
We're back at the den just so we can sit and recap what happened. So, Corky's appearance was wonderful. As you've all been asking, where is Corky? Didn't get a chance to look at memory glands, but saw some screenshots. There's a chance there could have been. We saw which direction she came from and where she's going. So, little Gary, I mean, Paulie does his best. If there is an active den that they come across, they will let me know. But otherwise, it's going to be really tricky. Secondly, it was a quick interaction, but very obvious what happened there. Corky's still in charge. So although Heart's been really dominant over Ndebele, and that's 2 aggressive interactions I've seen with them, Heart was very dominant last night. She's been at the den. She's obviously asserting her dominance and enjoying it. She's a high-ranked female, but that interaction showed you very clearly that Corky is still in charge. Heart acted submissively to Corky there. It wasn't an aggressive encounter. It was just a kind of hi, bye. Hey, how you doing? Nice to see you. Bye. So it wasn't aggressive, but that's how hyenas do greet each other. It's very bizarre to people. It's utterly weird, to be honest. But that's what they do, and that quick interaction showed us Corky's still in charge, 100%. So we just need to see Ribbon now, and we need to see more interactions between the likes of Corky and June and Corky and Ndebele. That would be interesting. Because Ndebele is Corky's old best friend's daughter. I hope you're all following. And I want to try and sex the cubs. I'm not sure about Ribbon's second one. I know one is a boy. But I'm just not sure about that second one. I spent some time here in December before the fireside chat, and I thought, could also be a boy, as in 2 boys. But I know some of you think 2 females. A boy and a girl, sorry. That's going to be tricky. I do think Hearts is a female. We got a good look at that the other day. So we've got a few things to confirm, but Owen, can you just zoom into that leg again? You can see this little one spot pattern is slowly starting to emerge. You see the spots? So that just shows you that the hair is starting to lighten. It's very faint, but you can see the spots. And just to reiterate, a communal den is a communal den. It is that. Essentially, everyone's welcome unless there's beef between individuals. Some of the boys get told to go, but it is a communal den. And this is where you're going to get communal sightings. Look at this one eating the stick. Living your best life. Look at those ears. It's so cute. Oh, I'm so glad I popped by. I'm so glad we saw Corky. I think I'm going to try and check some of the dens. We may as well. It doesn't mean I'm going to find it, but I may as well try. It might be a little boring to some people, but that's how you get the sightings. That's how you get lucky in the end, by just checking and checking and checking. So we are going to slowly check. I'm just trying to think where I should go first. Okay, as I make up my mind where I'm going to check first, we're going to send you guys over to Tess.
So as I was driving along speaking about finding some really nice birds of prey, we found a bird of prey. We've got a really nice brown snake eagle up on a dead tree at the moment, and it's looking a little bit bedraggled. You can see the crest on the top of the head is looking a little bit waterlogged. And there's a fork-tailed drongo that is really trying its best to irritate this snake eagle. It's been mobbing it on and off for the last few minutes, and it's actually getting so bold that it's coming down and tapping the brown snake eagle on the head every now and then. And all the brown snake eagle is trying to do is currently dry off a little bit, but at the same time it's looking down at the ground for some food. But this fork-tailed drongo has been having absolutely none of it. And this mobbing behavior is so characteristic of a fork-tailed drongo. I've seen them do it many, many times with Wahlberg's eagles. Oh, that's going to fly. Very cool, there it goes. At least you got to see a little bit of the mottling on the feathers as it took off. But you can see it was quite far in the distance. And it was one that we spotted as we were driving. It was kind of flew off in front of us and then landed again. Really, really beautiful. And a brown snake eagle is one of my favorites. It's a very characteristic bird of prey for this area. And you can see straight away when it's a brown snake eagle just from the profile, because they've got a very rounded head as opposed to all of the other birds of prey which tend to have a sleeker head. The brown snake eagle has a very rounded head. A really beautiful bird to have a look at. That fork-tailed drongo was really having none of it. Mobbing is one of the most interesting behaviors. Just trying to intimidate it, make it move so that it doesn't stick around the area. But it doesn't seem like it worked very well. I can see the snake eagles actually landed on a dead tree a little bit further away. I think we'll be able to get it, but it might fly again. Yeah, it might fly again. Now you can see it a little bit more from the side, and you can see there's the very rounded head. That's what I was talking about. So most of the other birds of prey have a slightly sleeker head, and then things like the Wahlberg's eagle. Oh, there was the white. The Wahlberg's eagle has a little crest on the back. So the snake eagle's definitely looking for some food, especially after the rain. Snakes will be coming out to warm up a little bit, maybe lying on termite mounds or any open, warm, sandy areas, because the ground will still hold a little bit of heat. And so that's preferably what it's looking for, but it doesn't only eat snakes. It prefers snakes, but it doesn't only eat snakes. It'll eat mice, gerbils, anything like that as well. Anything that it will find out here, even lizards. And I was actually just telling Darby a story when I was at Ngala. We were watching a marshal eagle in the Mopani forest, which is quite far north. And it was the first time I'd ever seen it. I'd seen this kind of thing on documentaries before, but I'd never seen it in person. All the birds were mobbing this marshal eagle, and it was quite high up in the Mopani. And as a grey go-away bird came to mob it, it just stuck out its leg, closed its claws around the neck, and killed the grey go-away bird. It actually ripped off its head, which sounds very horrible. Ripped off its head and then fed on this grey go-away bird up in the tree. And it was one of the most unusual things I've ever seen in my life. I don't know if I'll ever see that kind of behavior again, because the birds of prey generally tolerate that mobbing quite well. And this marshal eagle, I think it just had enough, because there's a combination of Burchell starlings, fork-tailed drongos, and the grey go-away birds that were mobbing it constantly. And I think it just got a bit much. It saw the opportunity for food, and it just stuck out its leg, closed its claws around its neck, and killed it. It was quite savage. It sounds quite savage. I mean, it's survival of the fittest out here, so these things happen when you're in the bush, but I just wasn't expecting it at all. And I had guests with me at the time. It was very, very, very strange sighting to have, but one that will always stick in my memory bank. It stands out as a raptor sighting for me. Also actually in the Eastern Cape, where my family lives, we see a lot of yellow-billed kites, but I've had a lot of really good sightings of long-crested snake eagles, which are quite tough to find in this area, in the Lowveld. They're quite tough to find. They prefer a little bit more foresty areas, so that's why they like the Eastern Cape. There's a lot of foresty areas through there in Albany Thicket. And we see quite a few of those, comparing the brown snake eagle to the long-crested snake eagle, which is actually one of Owen's favorite birds. It's just unusual. They look very similar to a brown snake eagle, but they've got a very long crest on the top of their head that sits flat, and then every now and then they raise it up. Beautiful bird. The brown snake eagle has actually landed further down into the thickets. But she just spotted it out the corner of my eye, but it's very far away. So I'm going to keep going down this road. I'm actually going to head towards Treehouse Dam and have a look there if there's any updates in the area. So this is normally the section where we start seeing more elephants, because now we're approaching a seep line, so we're seeing a lot more silver cluster leaf. The soil holds a bit more water, so this is a pretty good area for the elephants. It's also normally where we see a few more butterflies, because now we've got some wild foxgloves and other flowers growing up. So it's a great area to find some more of the insects. So I'm going to keep a close look and see if I can find anything for you. With it being wet though, butterflies will be scarce this morning. But maybe we'll see some shongololos, or if we're lucky, a scorpion looking for termites. The sun is actually just trying to break through the clouds a bit. It's the first time for this morning that we've seen a bit of the sun coming through. There are quite a few hyena tracks on the road again, and impala tracks. But the hyena tracks are always interesting because you want to check them and see if there's anything unusual. If there might have been something that they were following even. Something like leopard tracks underneath, or even wild dog tracks. Anything that would cause them to walk on the same road for a very long time. Usually following the scent of an animal, but when they're with the carcasses from the lions, that's why they've been walking in straight lines. Straight up, straight. Hear a few francolins in the background. I haven't heard any other strange sounds at the moment. We're approaching another clearing. You never know what you're going to find, but you're always hoping for something like wild dogs to surprise you.
I've just checked the sleeping spots that I know of. There's lots of sleeping spots around the den where we find them just snoozing during the day, especially on a cold day like this, but no such luck. Heart is still there. I guess I just want to solve the mystery. We can always come back. We can do 2 den checks and then come back and see what is going on. Clan dynamics are utterly fascinating. With Corky and Hart definitely at the top. What is happening under them? So I think I will check now Zoe's and Aubrey's. They're the 2 that I'm going to try and achieve today. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it takes a lot of time checking dens. Checked in Vubu, no way. Checked the Philemon's ones just yesterday, and as gorgeous as they are, there's nothing living in them. They're completely overgrown, even the dentrons. Checked Shibamu, completely overgrown, blocked, just absolutely no sign of anybody using it whatsoever. And I checked Gwenstein. So I've got a few to go, but I'll keep checking. And I am absolutely 100% sure they use a lot of dens that we don't even know about. I mean, this Twin Dams one was a surprise. But I'll do my very best. I'll see what happens. I just wonder if the western sector of the reserve is a good place to check, because of course that's where the carcass has been, on that western slice. I think that was Sarah. I think it was Sarah. You're asking how many species of hyena are there? There are 4. Well, 3 of hyena technically, but within the Hyaenidae family, you will find 4 species that make up the Hyaenidae family, and that is the spotted hyena, the brown hyena, the striped hyena, and the aardwolf. But in terms of how many species of actual hyena, I guess you would say 3: the striped, the brown, and the spotted. Spotted are most common. Brown was on my bucket list for a really long time. It became my nemesis animal. But I luckily got to see it at Madikwe. Not only see it, I got to have the most incredible sighting. Striped is on my bucket list. They are most common in Eastern Africa. And aardwolf, well, they're a difficult one. I tried to look for them at Swalu and Marataba, but no such luck. So 4 species make up the Hyaenidae family. All quite bizarre, actually. If you bring them all up on Google, you'll see how utterly bizarre they all look. They are bizarre looking creatures. So Corky went down there. And the little Gowie den, which I guess we could check, is up this way. Her trajectory was not in line with that den. But something is using that den. Could just be warthogs, could be a nocturnal animal. But that's why I didn't go straight there, because her trajectory is completely wrong. She could also just be going to sleep in the Mowati. I remember we went live from Little Gowie once, because Polly is amazing and very supportive of us. And we found June in the Mowati on the southern side of the Little Gowie. Mammary glands, and they do look pretty prominent. And he's posted screenshots, or you tried to do your best of the mammary glands, and they do look pretty prominent. I mean, they will never completely shrink. Corky's an older female that has had many litters. But it could be possible that they're full. It would make sense. Okay, the Little Gowie den is just here, so I'm just going to pop my nose in, why not? And for now, over to Tessa.
It seems like we're all going towards dams. I'm actually headed towards Treehouse Dam. I'm taking my favorite zigzag route to get there from the west, because I feel like when you zigzag, you're covering a little bit more area, but you're also making sure you're not missing any tracks that may have come in from the west. So Treehouse Dam is currently just kind of front left of me down into the dip, but I'm going to take a zigzag to get there so that we're covering a bit more area looking for things. I must correct myself, Darby also loves a long-crested snake eagle, so we're chatting about it now, and he also loves that bird, so it seems like it's a very popular eagle. So if you haven't had a look at one, please look one up. They are so different looking, and they're like ghosts. They're like ghosts to find, so very, very popular bird of prey to look for. And actually Darby and I had spoken about it, and then Owen and I spoke about it yesterday, so everybody loves a long-crested snake eagle. Oh, it sounds like JP has a surprise. Let's go over and have a look.
Welcome back to Eco Training Providence, and yes, we do have a surprise. We've actually got African wild dog and they just gone mobile again. So we did do is we went to go and actually follow up on them to try and see if we could keep up with them. However, they changed direction, and we almost did a whole 360-degree loop back to Leopard Dam, where they eventually arrived back at the dam. These guys are hungry and they're on the move and they want to go and make a hunt. We're going to stick with them as long as possible. It's not always possible. They often run into areas where we can't follow. And if we do get lucky, we might actually see them making a kill. And some of the tricky things of following them is that they actually reach speeds of up to 80 kilometers per hour. And it's very, very easy to actually lose them. Some of the areas where I worked, we had to often abandon them on hunts, as that they would often go over terrain where it made it so tricky. Quite once or twice we had vehicles that got stuck in aardvark burrows or even porcupine burrows, so that you can't always see where they're moving. I'm just going to make my way in here, change it to low range so we can do a little bit more traction. So for me, this is always one of my favorite predators to watch. The reason why they're one of my favorites is purely because they're such good team players. So I'm really happy that they've now been hanging around in the area for at least 5 or 6 days already. And one of the things that I do hope is in the next few months is that they're going to mate and hopefully den. So generally when they do den, they den around here in the months of May and early June. And that's pretty much a period that coincides with the rutting season for impala, and when impala rams are on their weakest. And we find when they're on their weakest, this is one of their favorite meals to take. And forms pretty much the largest part of their whole diet is impala. One of the things that you always see is that those ears are constantly moving and they're always listening and they're always keeping contact with one another as well. You'll see that those white tails are one of the things that they use for maintaining contact while they're out on hunts. Sort of something interesting, if we do look at the coats of African wild dog, each of them has got their own unique print, just like we mentioned yesterday with zebra, and that can be used for individual identification. Whoops, it was a bit rough. And they also reckon that if researchers can use it for identification, so can the dogs use it for individual identification in a group. We're just going to move around to the next road and see if we can intercept them there, and hopefully we'll be able to stay with them. It's also always great if you at least have 2 or 3 vehicles when following dogs, as it creates a lot of good help in terms of maintaining visual, but also because they can change direction so quickly. Just want to see where they've gone now. I just love watching them moving. It's such quick, and especially when they are homing on a group of impalas, it's absolute chaos and the speed that they go. I actually once watched one in the Kalahari where it was chasing a springbok, and the speed at which it was traveling at that point was some 88 kilometers per hour, which is pretty impressive. And the springbok actually just accelerated out underneath it. So making our way down here, see if we can find them in this little spot. So one of the things that you also do find of them is that they cover big distances in a single day. And I always like to put it into comparison, things in perspective, that they can almost cover the whole length of a Kruger National, the whole width of a Kruger National Park in a single day, because they can cover pretty much 50 or so kilometers when they're on the move in a single day. One of the other animals that we also quite often underestimate in their moving abilities is actually hyenas. And in a single day, those can also move up to 35 kilometers or so. And I reckon they can move some 70 kilometers on a round trip, sometimes feeding in a 2-day period. Well, let's go back to our dogs and see if we can actually find them. we go. They're right in front of us at the moment. Some more of them coming. Let's see where they go. I want to move out of a view of a vehicle so that we don't block their view of photography. It's also something that's very important to take in consideration as a guide. When you... Thank you, Anna. I'm just going to quickly concentrate over here and then see where they're moving. So when we are entering sightings as guides, we always want to make sure that we don't cut off in front of other vehicles and prevent them from effective photographing. Sorry, let's just go into another range and see if I can pop in here. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to keep up with them. They might be going into an area which is going to make following very, very, very hard. And over here at the moment, there's a lot of dead leadwood stumps, and those can wreck a vehicle very quickly. The dogs are directly in front of us in the moment. You can barely see them. You just see those ears sticking out there. And there we can see those little white tails. Oh, there's another one. Quite a few times I've been fortunate on walks to actually find them, and it's in areas like this where I've actually crossed, and the next moment you will actually just see a dog jumping up, spire hopping, and then producing a barking like sound. It actually took me quite a few years to actually discover that they can bark, as you always will hear them creating this long drawn out yodeling sound that they produce to maintain contact with one another. They also growl just like a domesticated dog, but unlike domesticated dogs, which belongs to the genus of Canis, they do not fit into the genus of Canis. They actually fit into a genus that is known as Lycaon, and it means wolf, and pictus, which means painted, and that's one of the reasons why they're often referred to as painted wolves.
So I've actually just found some really nice fresh leopard tracks heading towards the boundary that we've just come from, but they actually cut off the road. So it looks like a female leopard. She's been walking along the road going that way, trying to avoid the wet grass, and she's cut off straight towards the boundary. But it is so nice to see fresh leopard tracks. I'm wondering which leopard this will be. The amount that Kalamba moves, it might even be her. You never know. They're on top of the hyena tracks from last night. Definitely moved quite recently. This is Philemon's cut line, which is one of the roads that goes straight from the drainage lines of Quarantine, where Kalamba likes to spend a lot of her time, and goes straight down towards the boundary, kind of southwest. And so if she is wanting to move far distances, it's a great road to be using. Yeah, I actually came from that side, so not on the road anymore. I wonder, might be worth doing a little loop once I'm check Treehouse Dam. I think I'm going to go around and do a bit of a triangle on the boundary, see if we can see where she's crossed out. Or maybe she's just playing with us and she's going to do a little turn. Oh, hello, tracks again. Just one set of female tracks. Where are you going, leopardess? Maybe on a bit of a patrol for the morning. It'd be very nice to find a female leopard. Bump into one along the boundary on my way back from Treehouse Dam.
Welcome welcome back to Eco Training Pridelands. We managed to relocate on our dogs and they came to a standstill. We're pretty much limited in the areas where we can move. As you can see, there's a lot of bare patches. These are referred to as sodic areas, and they're quite sensitive areas which we don't want to drive over. So my best approach at this moment is going to try and stick to the grasses, not to damage this incredibly fragile soil type. We are going to, however, try our very best to see what these dogs get up to. I also already noticed that there was some impalas in the distance, and they hopefully are going to actually go and try and make a go on those impalas. Around by in the early 1902, 1903, this probably was one of the more common species of predators in the lowveld, and today they're actually one of the most endangered large carnivores in Africa. It depends whose works you are reading, but they reckon that currently there's less than 375 of them throughout Southern Africa. One of the reasons why their numbers have dwindled so much was due to persecution in the earlier years to actually I'll answer Ben's question in a moment. I just want to quickly move. At the same time, I just wanted to mention that the reason why their numbers dwindled so much was because of that they were actually persecuted, and their numbers managed to allow prey species to actually increase in conservation areas. And then over the last few years, canine distemper has also been a big problem for African wild dog populations throughout Southern Africa. It's actually always been a problem, and we find that in the early parts of the Kruger National Park, their existence, they used dogs to actually manage lion populations by using the dogs for hunting and then having to cull them. But those domesticated dogs then brought canine distemper into the Kruger National Park and surrounding game reserves and a number of other game reserves throughout Southern Africa. Sorry, Ben, to come back to your question, it so far seems to be the only pack of dogs that I've noticed over here, and it's this pack of 4. And something interesting that they normally say is that you need a minimum of 5 dogs to successfully raise a litter of pups. But for my case, I really hope that these guys are going to be successful and raise a litter very soon. And I really hope that they are going to den on the Pridelands concession. And I think that's a very good chance because a few areas that they've been scouting out recently. I'm just going to position over here on the grass, so I'm going to drive on this area in front of us, if I can avoid it. Just going to try and get a nice view on the camera there. There we go. So one of my favorite things with wild dogs is actually before that they go out and hunt, and it's how excited they get, and they will start running towards one another, and they start producing this twittering sound, and it's like they're encouraging one another just to go, let's go and hunt. So for those of you that might have not joined before, one of the reasons why I also find them absolutely fascinating creatures is when it comes to teamwork, and teamwork is absolutely essential for their survival. And when it does come to teamwork, it comes through in hunting, but also how they care for one another. We often see if there's an individual that's been injured or sick, and I've seen that a few years ago with a pup that we thought was not going to make it. Eventually he became a dominant male within a group and led that group perfectly for a number of different years after that. And it's simply the rest of the group helped him by providing him food on a regular basis. It just shows you how caring they are. It still doesn't mean that things are haphazardly, there's no conflict between individuals. We still see that there's the fact that the male will dominate all other males, and the female will also dominate other females in the group. And by keeping their rank and their morale quite low, they actually prevent them from going into estrus. Speaking under correction now, but as far as I remember, if there is a second female that does go into estrus, that female might, it normally happens that those pups would be killed. And which is quite sad for us in terms of human connotation, but in terms of survival of a species, that's very important that lesser dominant individual animals are prevented from breeding, and that only the strongest, most adaptive animals will eventually be the ones that will breed. There's a few features that you can use to separate males from females. You'll notice that there's a large penile sheath underneath the belly of this male, the scrotum, and we also find that the males have got bigger heads and bigger muzzles. Good morning, Donna. Welcome to the show. And yes, their tails do play a very important function, and the function for it is as a communication strategy when they are hunting at high speeds, that they can maintain contact with one another. It's not the only animals that like to maintain contact with one another. We also see that species such as lion need to also keep contact with one another, as they too are social species, and in their case they've got black ears as well as black tail tips, which they utilize as a communication method. We also think of warthogs, and they're also social to a degree, and they will also use their tails as a visual communication signal by simply raising them in an upright position. Good morning, Dev, and welcome to the show. Yes, they are, and I'm so happy that we could actually find them again this morning. If I can see African wild dog every day, that will make me happy. My second favorite of the animals out here is actually leopard, although we don't see a lot of leopard. And then after that, one of my favorite small mammals is actually dwarf mongoose. All three of them being carnivores, and the dwarf mongoose obviously being Africa's smallest carnivore. And those little guys only weigh some 200 grams on average. One of the interesting things that I've also seen in the last few years in the behavior of being able to follow packs on a regular basis is actually where the females that are in estrus, that they will actually urinate on the spot, and if that male then goes and smells there and he detects that she's in estrus, he'll actually do almost like a handstand-like move on his front legs, urinate in precisely the same spot as where that female has urinated, to prevent that other males detect that she is in estrus. I was just busy focusing there on something that one of the dogs was doing, and I lost track of the question. If you don't mind, just to repeat the question from the last viewer. Good morning, Quinton, and welcome to the show. It definitely impacts the ability to hear. It actually makes it more successful in terms of hearing. And that's why they've got these large funnel-shaped ears. And especially animals that operate in thick wooded areas, they need large ears so that they can detect different sounds. So it actually impacts it in a positive manner. Quite often when you also see them in the morning and there's dogs calling, they'll sometimes call with their heads down. And I think there's something that I read that it almost amplifies the sound, especially when the air is cool. That sound can also travel much further. It makes it a little bit more easier for them to actually maintain group cohesion. It's not the only large-eared carnivore that we do find. One of my favorite large-eared carnivores that we actually do find in the western part of South Africa is bat-eared fox. And you'll often notice that they use those large ears of them for putting them low down to the ground so that they can actually detect insect prey that they would love to dig up. Coming back to other species that we do find over here of fairly large ears, if you look at the ear shapes of species such as impala, it's quite large in comparison to a number of other antelope species which lives in open plains. So once again, your size of your ears are pretty much dependent on how your environment is and how you need to communicate and locate prey.
So I've done a quick little loop past Treehouse Dam. I didn't see any activity there, but I don't want to stay for too long because we do want to go back and check on the lines, see if they might be moving or what the update is there. So I'm just doing a little bit of a triangle where I had leopard tracks earlier. I'm just checking the roads around to see if she may have crossed anywhere. Those tracks were really nice and fresh. After the rain, it does help. You can see tracks quite a bit better, especially if a leopard has moved while it's busy drying, while the soil's busy drying. So it is good to check that while we are headed towards the boundary to go and find the lions again and catch up with them. Because it is so wet, a lot of the smaller animals are concentrating on the roads today. So you've seen quite a few birds on the road, some flashes of dwarf mongoose and squirrels. I think just trying to dry off a little bit and stay out of wet grass. So it's actually a tool that helps us with tracking, believe it or not. If you've got a lot of squirrels and birds that are walking up and down the roads, and you find a track that's on top of those tracks, then you know it's very fresh. And those leopard tracks looked like they were on top of every other track. So worth having a look for while we bumble back towards the lions. I would think the leopard has actually either crossed back and done a complete direction change of 180 and done a loop, or has actually crossed out of the boundary altogether. Oh, and it's starting to rain again. Can you feel that, Darby? We might get a bit of a soak from the rain. It seems that it's coming back. And these are much bigger drops than they were earlier. We might get soaked. Alright, I am back on the cut line. And there are my leopard tracks. How crazy. Lucky find.
Welcome back to Eco Training. We just had to quickly reposition as our dogs have moved. We had to take a little bit of a detour as what we wanted to avoid driving over these sodic disturbed areas, not to create any further environmental impact while we are following them. I think we'll sit and watch him for a little bit over here, but unfortunately we don't have many moves from here in terms of following them if they do start going mobile. Well, let's hope that they're going to stay and lie down for a bit and take a nice little rest. These guys are definitely hungry. They're always hungry, and they always have to be on the move and always are looking for something to eat, especially when it comes to that part of the year, around by May, June, July, when there's pups at the den for that 3-month period. They have to go out and they have to go and feed. They can provide sufficient amount of nutrition to those little puppies, and what you normally see is that they will regurgitate meat in the first few weeks with a female, and then she will feed on that and then use that to produce milk. In terms of later on, as the pups become slightly more mature, they also sometimes want to go out on these hunts, but they've learned very quickly if they follow that they're not going to get a meal, because their presence and their clumsiness is often what gives away the pack and prevents that the dogs have an element of surprise in their favor. But often when we did have den sites, we used to simply position there, knowing that the dogs will go out and feed when it becomes a little bit cooler. And the first thing that you normally used to notice is that they would run into the wind, see what they can smell, and sometimes diagonally with the wind, until they did pick up a scent of a potential prey species, and then they would follow them into the direction. And every now and then you did get lucky actually seeing them making a kill in front of you. I also do love the puppies, and I love the puppies when they're really small, when they're still dark in color. I probably reckon that they're one of the cutest of all baby animals out here in the bush. This is interesting watching them. There's a long distance alarm call that we heard from baboon that was calling now. And immediately their ears picked up and they're both all pinpointed into that direction. There's one of the dogs that's starting to steering around again. It looks like they're going to start going mobile very soon. And there we go. I've definitely seen something over there. A little bit disappointed when we managed to actually see some impalas that they didn't see, but well, that's how it works. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes I get lucky, and sometimes we're really hopeful for impalas that they don't get caught. But at the end of the day, we make peace of it that they must eat. Good morning, Chris, and welcome to the show. They will basically go and hunt daily, and when there's pups at the den, they will go twice if they have to. And depending on the size of a group, it's also going to be dependent on how large prey they can bring down. So I was recently asked what is the largest prey animal that I've seen them taking down, and it was actually a sub-adult Cape eland, which is one of the largest antelope species. And I would probably reckon that it was in the vicinity of 150 or 160 kilograms at that stage. However, a full-grown adult bull will weigh in over a ton, and I would doubt that they will ever be able to bring them down. Once before, I've also seen them chasing a group of eland, and I just saw this whole large herd of 100 elands coming straight towards us. Next moment, directly behind it, I saw a black rhino, and I wasn't sure what was going on, and they all were running in the same direction. And just as I looked up, and then I saw a whole pack of almost 18 dogs popping out, and they just continued. The black rhino decided this is not for him. He moved off and bolted into the opposite direction, past the dogs, and the dogs still kept on chasing the eland. However, I didn't manage to keep up that morning with that specific group, as if they were hunting the eland. Something else I've also seen in the past, that they're quite inquisitive and will often go and play with other predators, with other animals, and they'll go and see what the elephant is up to, and they'll test what he's doing, and then eventually they get chased off by the elephants. And I've seen them playing that game with a black rhino calf and a cow once before as well. Eventually the mom had enough of them and she chased them off. Also, once before, I was very fortunate to actually see a group of 4 making a hunt on a gemsbok. And that gemsbok actually, as a single antelope with a calf at foot, was so successful in protecting the young. And she simply just used both her horns as well as her front and hind feet for kicking, and effectively kept these 4 dogs at bay. Well, I also wouldn't like to get on the receiving side of gemsbok, as they've got some of the sharpest horns of any of the antelopes out here. Unfortunately, our dogs are moving off now, and we will not be able to follow them in that drainage line where they're now heading into. But what a great morning. If I can see dogs every day, I'll be happy. In the meanwhile, let's go and see what Tess is up to.
Actually just turned onto Triple M, our western boundary, and I'm heading back towards Gowrie Gates to go and get an update on what the lions might be up to, whether they've moved a bit. We found those leopard tracks again, so while we were driving towards Treehouse Dam, we found tracks of the female leopard. She has indeed done a loop, which makes me think it might be tracks of Kalamba moving sometime early this morning. Coming from the central part of the reserve, straight down Philemon's cut line, crossing out onto Gowrie Main, onto the boundary road, and then she did a loop back and back into Djuma, back north towards Twin Dams, the Mulawati drainage line, and she'll probably make her way back up north from there. So in typical Kalamba fashion, if it is her, she's doing big circles around us. So it's nice to know that she is around, and we've got some tracks if we want to use them later, but it looks like she's headed straight back towards the area where Lauren had her yesterday and the day before. Doing making big loops in her territory, possibly looking for food, but also doing a bit of scent marking as she goes, I'm sure. So what we're doing is just driving along the boundary, and hopefully we might get lucky and the lions have moved a little bit. We might be able to see a few more of them, or in typical lion fashion, they might be flat sleeping again. But we won't know unless we try, so it's worth going for an update before our morning is over. We have seen quite a few elephant tracks this morning. We haven't seen any elephants, and we were hoping we would find some today. But it seems like with this cool weather they're taking advantage and they're moving far distances to feed as much as possible. An elephant's life consists of moving almost always so that they can keep getting as much food as possible. They're a constant throughput, constantly coming in, constantly going out the other side, and it just keeps going in a cycle. They've got to eat so much food to get all of their digestive needs out of it. All of the food gives them energy, but their digestive system really isn't that efficient, so they've got to keep eating and drinking. Seems like the rain is playing games with us today as well. As we were driving down towards Gowrie, Maine, it started raining again, and now it seems to have stopped a little bit. Just a few light drops hitting us every now and then, but it's made the road very sandy and a little bit slippery, so we're taking it nice and slow. But while we are headed towards Gowrie Gates to find the lions, we'll head over to Lauren, who's out on a bumble.
We've been back at camp with a small technical issue, so unfortunately my day in search did not quite go the way I planned. I think the female leopard tracks that Tessa are on are the female that we had. They come up Zoe's, then turn east on Votella access, then head into the camp. I'm wondering Shadulu, but anyway, I think that's where she's came from. However, as you know, you shouldn't really speculate until you see the leopard. But that would be lovely, lovely, lovely if Shadulu was on the property. It would be so lovely. I know Tlalamba's got cubs, yes, but Shadulu really doesn't push that far. I mean, the furthest I've seen Shadulu in terms of the east would be Philemon's Dip, Ingwe Alley area. She would never really go into that northeast corner where Tlalamba is standing. But I am on Aubrey's. It's starting to rain. It's spitting. I feel like we're in for just one of these rainy days, but I am going to try and check the Aubrey's den, and then at least I've achieved one thing. Many of you post screenshots, and I really appreciate it. I do think you're right. Corky is denning. That's why she's not been around. I think she's got babas. But where, I do not know. So, feels like ages ago, but we went to check on the little Gowrie den. I wished we were still live at this point. We just turned in. We saw these little ears pop up in the entrance of the den. And lo and behold, I thought it was a hyena cub. Then when we looked, it was a warthog, an adult warthog that came running out of the den. So there are lots of cases of warthogs and hyenas sharing den. It's an interesting one, but I don't think that the hyenas are using it. I knew that something was using it, but every time I go, it's freshly dug, but I don't see hyena tracks. So lo and behold, it was a warthog. So at least we've crossed that one off. I just would have liked to have spent more time with Corky, to be honest. Lioness, we always give you the updates as we get them, and no, I haven't heard anything on Tingana, I'm afraid. Quarantine is listed on the Panthera newsletter as no longer with us. don't quite know what determines that. I don't know what they use to conclusively say that. I don't know if they have evidence or it's just based on the amount of time that has passed since his last sighting. But I do have a list of leopards and it does say that quarantine is deceased. Tingana, I don't know. He went very nomadic. He was in great condition the last time I saw him. As you know, if they lose condition, then that's the end. But I really don't know. I think the last update was maybe from August or something like that. So he could be wandering the Kruger, living a great life, or otherwise, and I don't know. And really, I hardly see male leopard tracks. And naturally, we've got contacts at Bubblesoak, Torchwood, and Coro, all of these properties that do sort of meet the Kruger boundary. So I really think if he was on one of these properties, we would absolutely hear about it, 100%. So I really don't know, I'm afraid. The last time I had Tingana, luckily it was just such a wonderful sighting. It was actually on one of these termite mounds, close by. I really don't know. And I also don't want to speculate. I don't know how Panthera do their listing, but quarantine it definitely says deceased. Which is sad, I never got to meet him. He always got called in on the radio. And I would race there. I would absolutely race to go see quarantine. And I would tell you all I'm going to see quarantine. It was never quarantine. It was always Klangula. I feel like I need to answer that. I've hidden my radios because it was raining. I don't think any station is there. I left about half an hour ago and it was active.
Copy, thank you.
Sorry, I just need to pay attention to where the 2-track was. I saw a 2-track there. Yeah. I'm gonna have to do a big U-turn. This road is tight. The Aubrey's Misikaya. Okay, we're gonna quickly check Aubrey's Den and, well, you never know. Might get lucky.
We are still bumbling along Triple M, the western boundary, and we're actually just about to arrive at the section with Gowrie Gate where the lions have been. So their tracks when they crossed in actually kind of cuts across the top corner of Djuma. So they just kind of avoided the whole of the central part and just followed the buffaloes straight over. Funnily enough, we've still seen a lot of fresh buffalo tracks around, so I don't think the buffaloes learned their lesson. I think they've come back. But I think the lions at this point have eaten too much to hunt again for the next few days. So as we're going, we're still checking all of the game paths, we're checking all of the main turn-offs and mitre drains, just to make sure we're not missing any tracks. Because nobody has actually been with the lions for the rest of the morning, and so we're not actually sure what the situation is. Maybe something's chased them and they've decided to move, so it is important to just keep checking anyway while we're on the way there. We can't assume that they are there in case they have actually moved. Buffaloes have definitely been back. Some tracks and dung in the road. Still a lot of fresh hyena tracks as well. I'm wondering if the hyenas have been moving up and down overnight, but I'm sure some of them have stayed at the carcass. They're hoping for scraps hiding in the long grass somewhere. We haven't actually seen any with the lions yet, but you never know. Maybe they're just lying somewhere where we can't see them, like we can't see the rest of the pride. I really hope that those lions are still there. So you will see some buildings and a few different vehicles as we're driving through here. We've just approached Gari Gate. So from here we're going to be turning off towards the dams where the lions were. We haven't seen any fresh tracks of them coming out anyway, so I don't think they've come back this way if they have moved. But because no one's checked on them in the last kind of 2 hours since we left, or hour and a bit since we left, you never know. I'm hoping that what will have happened, because we've had a little bit of rain now, that either the lions will have moved a bit to try and wash. At the moment, we do have a few signal issues, so when we get there, we're actually going towards the dip straight in front of us. This first dip that you can see in the road, that one right there, is where we've been parked, where we've got the shorter field of view, the smaller field of view. If we carry on up the hill on the other side, that's where we've got the very open view on the eastern side of the dam. And so those are the two spots we're going to be trying. We're going to try this one closest first, and hopefully we can see the lions nicely from there.
Welcome back to Eco Training Providence. We managed to relocate the dogs and lose them again and relocate them again. That's always good to have proper knowledge of a road infrastructure as well as a relief of a landscape when it does come to following animals. And luckily, I anticipated that they are going to make their way towards a fence line where we actually did manage to find them. I also quite often use these fence lines in their favor by chasing prey species into it. A few times I've actually watched them doing so. One was a kudu that they chased into a electric fence line, and unfortunately for them, they couldn't eat it because every time that they went close, they actually got electrocuted as this kudu became entangled in the fence line. We're going to try and keep with them as long as possible. We, however, have a little bit of a predicament with rain, and unlike the other vehicles that have secured storage for the electronic equipment, our backpack, if exposed to water, can potentially get ruined. So we might need to actually very soon start heading back. But at the moment, it's still fine. We've just light rain that we're experiencing. One of the things that I do like about following wild dog is that you never know what's going to happen, and that they can change any moment from direction, as well as that they can also very, very rapidly find something and make a kill. We're just going to apologize. We're just getting our lenses soaked with rain, and we don't have rain covers on top of the vehicle. We're just going to quickly wipe that lens so that we can just give you a little bit of a clearer view for a little bit longer. Being joined by another vehicle that's also coming to come and have a look. I'm always glad when other vehicles can also come in. I believe everybody must see these beauties. When they communicate, there's a number of different sounds that they produce, and one of them sounds like something like this. I don't want to do it too long because I do it pretty well, and if they hear it, they're actually going to turn around and they're going to come and look, and I don't want to unnecessarily alter their behavior in any way. As human beings, I believe we already influence our environment quite drastically, and if we as guides can do it in a more sensitive manner, and so it should be done at all costs. They're coming out in front of the road again. you'll quite often see that they go off a road, come back onto the road, and what they're looking for is potential prey that they can startle. And one of the things that you'll also notice, if you don't have a fence obviously on the other side, they'll go on both sides of the roads and they weave back in and out on the roads. Just gonna try and keep up with them again. See, some of them has now moved off, while one of the dogs are still staying on the road. When it comes to the puppies, in terms of sounds, they make a whining sound pretty much like a dog. Sounds like something like this. Good morning, Keeps, and welcome to the show. If I remember, it's roughly some 10 to 12 years. However, there is a number of exceptions of individuals that actually made it slightly longer than that. Okay, let me just position over here. Let's see what they're getting up to. I just love the way that those ears are moving. I just got a fright there as BK repositioned the camera. It's amazing how in tune they are with what's going on around them. So when it does come to prey size, I was also asked quite often, what do they eat? Anything from the size of a mouse or hare, small antelopes, but they prefer medium-sized antelope, and they will also go for things like wildebeest as well as kudu. I've seen quite often. Thank you, Henry, and thank you for the compliment. I always try my very best to imitate birds as well as animals, and it's luckily something that I've been automatically been gifted to do quite well. I just see if we can relocate on them. I just wanted to give the other vehicle a little bit more of a view. Okay, let's see if we can find them. Okay, what is our roads doing? Okay. I'm just going to try and go on this road. They might actually cross this road and go back onto the fence. I tend to find if they generally into one direction, I tend to stick into the direction, with the exception of some of the prey species alter their behavior. Okay, let's see what's going on over here. It seems that they did actually cross the road. VK, if you see them before I do, please let me know. One of the things as guides, when guiding, I often actually invite my guests to participate by also looking out, as I'm sitting quite low and my guest is actually sitting much higher. In this case, BK is sitting in the guest position, and it also keeps the guests entertained, and I also explain that I might be missing things. I think they actually might have popped out behind us. I'm just going to turn around. No, actually there they are. We've got them. And also it does help to have a tracker on the front of the seat. It enables you to manage the radio, manage the sighting, also manage keeping the vehicle on the road, and at the same time, okay, right over here onto our right hand side, that the tracker can see what's going on in terms of focusing on tracks as well as spotting animals. Our guiding does become a multi-skill, tasking skill. I also believe if you can share the duties, you become more effective, because there's no such thing as successful multitasking. I'm just going to put the camera over there, see what they do. I hope that they're not going to go back into this drainage line, because we're definitely not going to be able to follow through here. Let's just watch and see what they get up to. I don't know if you can see them at the moment, but I just love the way that those ears are cocking and constantly listening for what's going on around them. And hearing is so important, because that's often how you do detect something. And then obviously with sight is just as important for them. Once they sighted something, and you can just watch them go, and it's amazing to watch their acceleration speed. One of the few antelopes that I did see them being quite unsuccessful on, although once I actually did see them kill, was actually Steenbok. And I actually watched how Steenbok outruns dogs, as they can so rapidly change direction and the dogs actually battle to do so, as they're fixed on speed. Changing direction becomes a tricky thing for them.
It's also raining here, I'm afraid. Drizzle, drizzle, drizzle. Not entirely pleasant, but no luck at Aubrey's den. There are actually 2 dens that I checked. No luck. That's okay, I'm working my way through them. Someone needs to keep a list for me and assist me in where I have to go next. I think this afternoon I'll try Zoe's. That's a tricky one. It's sort of really down a steep embankment and you have to come up again. It's not the best den site for the cars, but that's okay. I'll check Zoe's. And then I might just get off on foot and work the area of the Philemon's den, because I'm sure some of you will remember there are 3 really prominent dens in a row. 1, 2, 3. They're sort of in a line. And there's a really prominent road now. It's actually called Taxon's Road. They actually used 2 other dens briefly during that time. I remember them. There is one that when we were doing the SABC shows at night time that is off that track. So we'll try and go for that one. And there is also one that's a little bit closer to Treehouse Dam. They're not great. They're not entirely accessible, but that's okay. I think maybe we'll try those dens. Sorry, our lane's just getting a little bit wet. Impala, hello. We are just going to pull up here and give you a little bit of a view. So there's another vehicle on the road for now. We've just stopped on Verdell Exit. I went through a whole run through of dens there, but I think we were in an ad break. No luck at Aubrey's. No luck at all. I know I've ran out of time to get to the other dens. But that's okay. Either way, we got to see Corky. It's super nice to see her. Oh, everybody's here. Wunderbar. Mr. WildEarth and his friends, the Impala. The squad. This is real squad goals right here. A sea of Impala. All female except that big ram over there. I'm sure some of the lambs are also male, but it's tricky to see their little stumps. We're seeing a lot of bachelor herds right now. And what sometimes happens with the late droppings of lambs, naturally there will be lots of hormonal scents in the air because some females are giving birth. And it can be really temporarily confusing for the males. They can sometimes get a little bit distracted. But it's the birthing hormones naturally, and not the estrus hormones. It is not the rutting season. But this male has clearly done well. He's got every single female Impala on the entire reserve here. Oh, you lambs are getting so big. Look at them all just watching us, Owen. There must be, what, 10 lambs here? This is actually a really nice herd. I wonder why they're not on quarantine. No, I mean, this is Impala Plains after all. It wouldn't make sense to call an area Impala Plains if there were no impala. Did you see that? Boing, 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 off they go. Okay, I'm going to scratch Votella access, then head back to quarantine and see if I've missed anything, but I believe Tessa is back with her lions.
We are indeed back with our lions. There seem to be a lot of vultures, which is what we've actually started on. There's quite a few up in the trees. They are not currently feeding on a carcass or anything. They're actually all grouped together, roosting up in the stead tree. But the lions are on the other bank of the dam again, not the river, sorry. And it seems like we can still only see 7. The one with its head up, and then there are 6 grouped together on the right, 2 lying right next to the water's edge, 1 higher up, and then 3 behind the bushes on the left that are almost on top of each other, and that includes Dark Mane. He's off to the left with that little puddle of lines melting together there in the rain. So the rain has actually picked up quite a bit here. We've got quite a steady drizzle going on, and it doesn't seem to be bothering the lions at all. They have all moved closer together, but also closer to the dam. So I'm sure they all came down and had some water just now. And now they are relaxing again as the morning goes on. The one with its head up currently actually has not moved the entire time we've been here. The head has been up. But the rest of them seem like they are just snoozing away the morning in typical cat fashion. Every now and then you'll see a little bit of movement from one as it repositions a leg or a belly. But for the most part, we seem to be sleeping. So possibly when there was a little bit of a break in the clouds earlier and we started seeing a bit of sunlight, it heated up a little bit, and I'm wondering if that caused the lions to come down to the dam's edge.
Open lock.
Lilybet, yes, they are actually Dark Mane's children. All of the sub-adults in the pride are. We know that he's in a coalition with Blondie and Mohawk, but they have not fathered any cubs in the Talamati pride. They focus more on the Nkahuma pride. Dark Mane is currently the father of all cubs in the pride and all sub-adults. So yes, they are his sons, and that's why he's tolerating them still. But when they start getting a little bit older now, because they are getting to that point where they are going to have to become independent, then you might find he might start pushing them a bit. But my gut feeling is that because there has been quite a bit of pressure coming from the Mbali male, that Dark Mane getting a little bit older and having other lions coming in towards the territory and interacting with the Talamati pride means that he's going to need a bit more strength, and so he might keep the sub-adult males in the pride for a bit longer as a bit of a backup. I know the last time we saw them, it looked as though they'd been in a little bit of a fight, and the sub-adults were much more scratched up than Dark Mane was, so it's almost as though the sub-adults had taken the brunt of the force, and Dark Mane had maybe made another quick escape like he did when I watched them with the Mbali male, the S8 male. In fact, the last time I saw them was actually very close to here. So on the boundary where we are, our next road down towards the south is Sandy Patch North. The last time I saw them, they were on the exact same road, and I followed them all the way down the road past Sandy Patch Junction and then out towards the western boundary, and they crossed out over Triple M, and I got to follow them the entire way, which is quite special. So this is definitely one of the more popular areas within their territory, one of the areas that they tend to visit more often. You can see that's a sub-adult male that's got his head up there on the right. It's actually the darker one. I've been very impressed by how alert that particular sub-adult male is. The whole morning he's been the one that's consistently had his head up. He is the bigger of the sub-adults, particularly the males. And I would think he's almost similar in body size now to dark mane, although I need to see them next to each other to be sure, because dark mane is starting to shrink a bit and he's definitely expanding this one. So it would be quite interesting to see them side by side interacting like that, so we could get a size comparison. So the rain is actually picking up a bit. I'm wondering if the lines are going to move. Jessie, you're 13 years old. Yes, there definitely are instances where sub-adult males don't leave the pride. The Birmingham young male was actually a perfect example of that. I think they're calling him Osindile now, if I'm not mistaken, but he's definitely a good example of that. He stayed with the pride much longer than they normally do, and there have been instances where the lions actually stay with the pride their whole lives. I haven't seen it personally where they've stayed that much longer than they should have, but there certainly have been instances of it. So it does happen, and that's normally the case when, for example, the dominant male is quite a lot older, or when there are no more dominant males around. So if there's a takeover or anything like that, and then they start to move, then the sub-adult males might actually stay in the pride. If you do see the camera moving a bit, or the view, it's because we're zoomed in quite far and we're just trying to cover all of our equipment as the rain has picked up.
Brown one.
Sorry about the noise, everybody. We're just covering up some equipment. It definitely looks like the lions have actually started waking up thanks to the rain, and I was wondering if that was going to be the case. The ones that we can see are still looking a little bit flat, but off to the left, behind the bushes, some of the lions are starting to lift their heads. If it does rain consistently like this, you might find the lions will move just now. I would not be surprised at all. But it is quite lovely rain. It's not that very hard rain where everything starts to erode. It's a steady, soft rain, and what that means is it's going to have a really good chance to seep into the ground, but also cover the animals and give them a good bath. And the lions will actually use this to their advantage as well. They'll keep grooming each other so they can get nice and clean after feeding. We're going to stick around a little bit longer, see if we can get a view of one or two that are up, and we'll see what happens from there.
Not bumping it though, eh?
I just wonder if somewhere like here. We haven't had a chance to move just yet, but it does look like the lions might actually move just now. So we're going to watch and just see what happens, but I feel like the sound of the rain is quite soothing. So while we sit here and watch them and see what happens, let's have a listen and just appreciate
some of the sounds of the rain. We're just putting the rain cover down on the side, and Rusty at the moment is trying to cover where the rain is coming in at an angle behind Darby. Yeah, we're going to have to cover ourselves a little bit more because it's coming in at an angle from behind us. It does look like we might get a little bit of activity. Maybe we'll get lucky and the lines will start moving.
Drive into it to try and get home, or try and give it 5 more minutes. But to be honest, our rule was if it puddles in the footwell, you go home, and it's puddling deeply in our footwell. It's a tricky decision. So we can give you views of the landscape, but otherwise that rain is heavy. We used to drive a little bit more in the rain, but to be honest, our equipment can't handle anything. It's all very, very, very fragile. Okay, we are going to head back to camp. That's the rain getting tougher now, and we are going to send you guys over to JP.
Welcome back to Eco Training Pridelands. Luckily, we managed to escape that rain and stopped. Unfortunately, we have not been able to relocate on our dogs, but what we did find is a big journey of giraffe that we have. I've seen them sometimes into groups of almost 50 giraffes in the past. If you do notice that there's a number of different age groups as well as sexes within this group, and it seems that most of them are actually female, with the exception for this very tall bull that's approaching, and he's most likely looking for females that are in estrus. Quite often you'll see the head popping down towards the reproductive area of a female, and what he's doing is actually smelling the chemical components within the urine to make sure if she is actually pregnant or in estrus or not, and if it's worth mating with her or not at that point. It's actually now reverted to doing some feeding again. Let's see what they get up to. So when it does come to groups of giraffe like this, we actually find that there is actually no structure in terms of leadership within this group. They just simply come and go as what they want. We also do find that these sometimes are male groups with a lot of bulls in them, sometimes female groups, and then with individual males. Generally, the reasons why there's large groups of males of association of females is generally cows that are in estrus, and we also generally find that if there's good quality feeding, they'll also form these large groups. And then we see that once they're fed in that area, the plants have released enough toxins in that area, and they will start moving off into different directions. The only real bonds that we do see is between a female and a calf. And when it does come to males, they actually have no responsibility in terms of assisting with raising the young once they've mated with a female. It's also a deer. They've got an incredibly long gestation period, and that's roughly some 457 days, which they will carry. I just want to watch this one male specifically. He's trying the whole time focused on this female. see if he's going to actually test reproductive condition again. Sometimes you'll actually see them tapping with a front leg on the female's hind leg as well. Strange thing that we also sometimes see is we'll actually notice males mounting one another, and that's purely because of dominance. Once they've been fighting and the one has lost, the loser often gets mounted by another male. There's something that I also find particularly fascinating about the differences between females and males when it comes to feeding, is that the female is often more focused on feeding on quality food compared to the male that will focus on literally eating anything. Good morning, Luna, and welcome to the show. Yes, it's quite common to see them actually traveling on their own, but it's equally common to see them forming large groups as well. And quite often they're just simply scattered, and we also know that they can see lion up to a distance of some 3 kilometers. And they can apparently maintain contact with the young at distances of up to 3 kilometers. And we can most likely, if they're scattered, they're just groups that will reform, although they just have, well, they're still maintaining eye contact with one another at that point. Sorry, I was just distracted there with something. So I just love watching giraffe. They're such elegant looking animals, and I just love the way that they're walking. Let's have a look over here, how it's moving with the right and front and back, followed by the left front and back. Very unique gait that they have. However, when they do run, they actually change the way that they move their legs, and they simply kick the hind legs straight past the front legs, and then they kick the front legs forward again. And sometimes if they're at top speeds of approximately 60-65 kilometers an hour, they actually have to keep their head straight to prevent that they actually do fall over. It just allows for that more balance. Well, speeds of 60 kilometers an hour is still not effective to actually outrun lions. But one of the strategies that they do have is to very effectively protect themselves with their feet. We're just going to sit and watch our giraffes a little bit longer, see what they get up to. If there's any viewers that have any questions about giraffe, they're more than welcome to ask. It's one of the things that I really like about the giraffe is the patterns that they have. If you're a well-versed traveler throughout Africa and you visit a number of safari destinations, you'll actually notice that they actually all have different color patterns. Originally, we treated them as a single species with 9 different subspecies, depending on whose works you were following. Some books were referring to 8 different subspecies. Now, those 8 subspecies has now been grouped into 4 different species. And the subspecies that we have over here is known as Southern African giraffe, which forms as a part of a subspecies within the Southern giraffe species. Those of you that are not familiar with the term species is a group of animals that cannot interbreed with other individuals. However, subspecies has the ability to interbreed and produce fertile offspring. Good morning, David, and welcome to the show. There's a number of theories on that, and the one that is quite often mentioned, I do actually find it a little bit far-fetched, and there's no scientific proof to it as yet. So I'm not going to even go into that. So I'm going to be quite honest. I honestly don't know what the real reason why that color is blue. But what I can tell you about that tongue is that it's coated with a very unique saliva, and that saliva actually deflects thorns off a tongue, and their main food is actually thorny trees, and those are both the Chelias and Senegalias, which has got long straight or hooked thorns, and in some species actually both combination of hook and straight thorns. We also find that that tongue can be up to 45 centimeters long, and I can also tell you that it's prehensile, that it can actually wrap around and then pull the food into the mouth as it strips the leaves off the twigs. Good morning, Graham, and welcome to the show. Yes, they can vocalize. However, it used to be believed that they are mute and that they can't produce sounds. They actually bellow when they're under distress as predators will approach. And that's one of the few times that you will actually hear a giraffe making a sound. It's also quite interesting. They're more relying on eyesight as a visual form of communication with one another compared to their close relative, which is a okapi, which is found in the West African forests, which actually is more vocal, uses more vocalizations. You can think of it, they occur in thick forested areas where visual contact and it was limited, and therefore sound is more important to utilize to actually detect individuals. I'm also sure that they very heavily would rely on scent, as you both find that the giraffe over here utilizes scent. I'm sure that the forested okapi also does so.
The lions. The rain is getting a little bit much, so we've decided to bumble on our way back towards quarantine. We're having quite an entertaining bumble actually, because we've had to close the flaps on the side of Rusty for the rain because it's coming in such an angle, and as we're driving it keeps whacking me in the face every now and then, so it's quite an entertaining drive. But it seemed like the lions were getting a bit uncomfortable with the rain, and so they decided to move a bit. So we couldn't really stay with them much longer. So we're now back on Vuyotela access, heading towards quarantine and camp. Oh, hello. Some nice elephant dung in the road. Lots of signs of elephants today, but no actual elephants in the flesh. Quite entertaining. It does look like there is quite a mean cloud of bank of clouds. A mean bank of clouds coming in. Oh my goodness, I think we're going to get a lot more rain today. It's supposed to rain right up until lunchtime, so we will see how the morning goes. What this does mean is that any tracks that we hear this morning are going to be washing away, but any tracks that happen from just after the rain onwards are going to be looking really nice and fresh by this afternoon when we come out again. So that'll give us a nice opportunity to find fresh tracks if there are any. I can already tell you there will be hyena tracks headed back towards those lions. But hopefully we might find some leopard tracks or something like that as well. But that would be great for the afternoon.
Finally the rain stopped. My goodness, we are all soaking. Soggy bottoms on board Wendy, I tell you. So we've just stopped on quarantine just to see if anything's moving. The birds are starting to call. That's a good thing. They don't when it's raining, but they do after the rains. But it's not been a bad drive at all. At least we got to see Miss Corky. I've been wondering if she was okay. But that would make sense that she hasn't been seen on the dam cam as far as I know recently. So it would also make sense that maybe she is staying somewhere that's not around that area. Might not be on Juma. I really don't know, but I shall continue to search this afternoon. Absolutely. Did you get that name, Owen? Owen and I didn't copy that name, I'm afraid, but you're saying you love the cloudy sky. I love it too, when it's heavy with rain like that, but when I'm indoors with a hot cup of coffee in my hand, then I really love it. But when I'm out on the vehicle with a soggy bottom, not so much. But of course, we do need more rain. I really don't feel like we're in the height of summer, that peak of summer. There are not enough insects around. The vegetation is lush. Yes, that's true. But I don't feel we're right in that peak of summer yet. I want to see more insects. And I'm determined not to leave at the end of my stint at the end of the month without at least figuring out a little bit more about the Juma clan. There are so many unanswered questions that I really want to find out. And of course, we managed to spend time with Tlalamba. That was one of my other aims. And I would really, really like to see Kuchava and cub, Kuchava and daughter. I like to tie up loose ends. Maybe it's my nature. And the Juma clan has far too many loose ends, that's for sure. But as the bush gets thicker, and if it does get a lot thicker, it will provide challenges for us. But that's okay. We love a challenge. But there is definitely more rain coming. It started drizzling again. I think Tessa might get rather wet driving home. But keep your eyes on the dam cam, everybody. That dam cam is a fantastic tool at times to really see animals moving without any humans present. You can be watching anything, life goes on. And the animals are completely oblivious to it. That's where we actually saw Tlalamba mating with Mowati. So we've seen many things that you don't see during the day. And I would really like to know if Ribbon gets spotted at any point. Ribbon's somewhere. She's just shifted her routine. And I do believe it's due to Heart's presence in this new club, but that's okay. It will all shift back. But on that note, it's time to go home and get dry and get breakfast. I'm excited about that. But it's not been a bad drive at all. From lions, wild dogs, and catching up with the Juma clan, especially Corky. I think it's been a pretty good drive all round. So a big thank you to you all for jumping on board as always. You make us what we are. So please do join us this afternoon. I hope it's not raining. And until then, have a fantastic day.